Previously on Crenden Theater.
Hey, Sid. Turns out I'm going to be home alone this weekend.
Look, I'm just calling to let you know that the Rubyton boy is throwing a party in an hour and wanted me to invite you.
Honestly, embezzling millions from your own company, lying to the government, and now I'm finding out that you lost most of your funds because of your obsession with stocks.
Who is this, and how did you get this number?
Really, Araceli? It was on the cast contract sheet Caleb gave us weeks ago, remember?
The lawyers told me not to worry. Then I won't. Right, Dad?
You want to come over and throw a party?
Crenden Theater, Chapter 7. The party was in full swing by the time Sir Ian and Sydney made it to Adrian's home. The entire mansion was bumping, and there were crowds of people spilling out of every doorway. Everyone was having a good time, dancing and playing drinking games with each other, as castmates do. As Sydney and Sir Ian stepped out of the car and onto the steps of the Rubyton Mansion, Sydney couldn't help feel overwhelmed suddenly by the size of Adrian's home. For someone who has just as much star power and hearsay as Sir Ian, it was interesting to see how he chooses to abstain from acting like a priss. How it almost seemed like the illustrious Sir Adrian Rubyton wanted to just be Adrian. Another guy working hard to achieve a goal that his family would obviously never approve of.
It's almost as if you've never seen a stoop before, Miss Rosnant.
Sir Ian said, giggling to himself.
I honestly didn't expect his family to be so... well, this.
Sydney said, gesturing to the entire mansion.
Sid, hey, thanks for coming out tonight, you two.
Before Sir Ian could respond, Adrian was already down the steps and greeting Sydney with a hug.
The party's just getting started.
Adrian headed back up the steps with a firm grip around Sydney's hand. She laughed as he practically dragged her up the steps and into the foyer, Sir Ian following closely behind. The three headed for the kitchen, where all the drinks were laid out in a buffet-style selection, which seemed appropriate considering people just kept grabbing bottles instead of mixing. After a few shouting matches between them and the speakers, the three began to enjoy themselves in the living room amongst the other actors and, of course, their friends.
Parents out of town and you throw a party. I can't believe even you have a rebellious side.
Sydney said with excitement and a slight tinge of fear on her voice.
No, come on. This is nothing. I mean, you should see me around my birthday.
Upon hearing the two of them laughing, Sir Ian began to feel that same chill run up his spine as before. He tried to gather as much charm as he could muster.
It's great to see that the lead actors are able to relax amid the chaos of rehearsals you have to attend.
Well, it's not all work. I mean, even you have to relax at some point. Right?
Sir Ian and Adrian stared each other down, the two of them realizing that the other one would not just let them walk away that easily.
It's great that we can all get together like this. Everyone just having a good time. Nothing about work, rehearsals, or even different class levels. Just a bunch of people drinking, dancing, and having fun together as people.
Sydney said, looking at her drink and at her surroundings, completely ignoring the heated telepathic conversation between Sir Ian and Adrian. After a few moments of them chatting together, Adrian noticed a chance to slip away from Sir Ian as he pointed out a family painting he had been researching. He grabbed Sydney's hand and quickly ducked into the crowd of dancing people for cover. As Sir Ian turned back around, he quickly stood up and began looking around for the two of them. But they were already gone. Damn it, Sir Ian said in frustration.
Wow, that was like the best show I've ever seen.
Lady Araceli said, approaching Sir Ian, who was standing in the center of the kitchen.
I'm surprised your mother even let you join us. You wouldn't be sneaking out, would you?
He said, staring into her eyes with suspicion.
No, feeling a bit jealous that I don't have to work so hard with my little crushes. I honestly don't understand you, Ian. You could literally have anyone here, and yet that's the one you want. She's a nobody. Why even go through the trouble?
Sir Ian said nothing. He could feel pressure on his chest, and he began to breathe heavily. He simply grabbed one of the many bottles laid out on the table in front of him and began to knock it back. The burning sensation of the drink hitting his esophagus caused him to flinch a little, but it didn't slow him down. He didn't care what he was drinking. He just knew it was going to do the trick.
That's more like it.
Lady Articelli said with a newfound excitement.
Now come on. Let's go party like we used to, before we had to deal with all these idiots.
Sir Ian and Lady Articelli headed into the living room where the dancing was happening. The two began to join in and knock back their drinks at the same time. The sound of the bass was the only thing Sir Ian was focusing on, just letting the beat take his mind away from the lawyers and the audit and his family. Tonight he was going to enjoy himself like it was the first time he'd ever partied before. Adrian and Sydney managed to sneak their way upstairs and away from most of the party happening below. The two found themselves in the Rubyton Library, a place where practically every book on psychology lived. Whether it was written by Sigmund Freud or by the Rubytons themselves, the walls were lined from floor to ceiling. Sydney was taking a moment to take in all of her surroundings again. She was in awe of how many published works were stuffed into this room.
Your family in the publishing game? Or is a library in the home like a rich person thing?
Sydney asked with a giggle.
No, this half of the room is reference material from already published psychological books, and this half is the ones my family members have written.
Adrian said, casually sipping his drink.
Psychology books?
Mm-hmm. That's the Rubyton niche, if you would. It's what made us who we are.
Wow. So your parents are Doctors Samantha and Lucius Rubyton.
And at the APA conference right now. Yeah, my sister Jessie is in Italy on a scholarship studying the psychological impact of different art genres on kids with ADHD. Wait, how do you know about my parents?
You know I get the news on cable, right? Plus, I also read their book about lucid dreaming and how to master it.
Yeah, that's my dear old family. I'm sure you're already wondering why I'm not doing some kind of psychological track like every other Rubyton.
To be honest, I can tell just by being in this room that I would feel the same way you would. Constantly being surrounded by the pressure to compete with all of this, feeling like you're never going to make it no matter how hard you try. I don't need a degree in psychology to let me know that you chose not to follow the path because you've already seen it all. You're bored and wanted to try something completely different.
So, instead of going to my after-school tutoring, I snuck away and auditioned for my school's play, and I got the lead.
Thereby, pissing off your family pretty good, and making you feel a rush of happiness you've never experienced before.
Yeah.
The two were staring into each other's eyes for a moment, knowing in that moment that they both were on the same level. No class systems, no rehearsals, just the two of them talking like normal people. When the two went to take another sip of their drinks, they were both empty. Knowing that they would have to walk back through the party to get more, Adrian stood up and walked over to a bookshelf by the fireplace. He reached for the tallest book in one of the rows and opened it to reveal a small flask. A secret stash he'd been hiding for years, just in case he was ever in a situation like this one.
You know, for a guy who threw a giant party, you don't seem eager to be a part of it. Why did you bring me back here anyways?
Look, it's not like we'll be gone all night, and I thought you wanted to stay away from Crenden.
I do, but not like physically yanked away from a conversation. I don't want to be rude to the one person who can shut this whole thing down.
Sydney said, starting to feel a bit annoyed.
And that's why I did it. Right, he wouldn't have any reason to get angry with someone like me. I don't want him taking advantage of your status. You know, you live alone, your family doesn't require a reputation to survive, you have more freedom than any of us here. It'd be so easy for someone in Crenden's position to prey on your freedom in order to trap you into doing something you don't want to do.
Adrian collapses into a nearby chair, letting the cushions sink him into the leather and finally laying his head back. He tilts the flask up to his lips, but in that moment Sydney grabs it out of his hands and takes a drink herself.
I'm not going to let Crenden intimidate me. If I can star as the lead in this show, visit a cemetery after midnight, I'm not scared of anyone.
Yeah, by the way, what's up with that, right? We went to a cemetery a few hours ago and an abandoned cannery a few days ago. Are you on, like, some treasure hunt?
Adrian said, barely being able to hold up his head.
It's the rosin niche, if you would.
Fair enough. I know you're strong enough to deal with Crenden. I'll ease back a little.
I get it. You know what all of these elitist people are like better than I do. I should really listen to you instead of fighting you.
You're the only person I can trust.
The two said at the same time. They took a moment and just let that phrase sink in. As the two were distracted, the door of the library swung open. Sir Ian and Lady Adicelli come bursting through the doors, defying the very laws of physics by holding each other up.
Well, well, well. Where are we?
Lady Adicelli said in confusion and desperation to sit anywhere that wasn't holding someone up.
Oh, come on, you guys. We've been here for like 45 minutes and you're already trashed?
Adrian said, laughing hysterically.
You'll want to talk, Sir Adrian. At least I don't have to wake up with that face tomorrow morning.
Lady Adicelli said, giggling to herself.
All right, you two. Why don't the two of you go back down to the party, and we'll be down in a second.
Sydney said, trying to keep the two drunks' attention.
I am not going anywhere without you, Sydney. I've been waiting for you to join us in celebrating. This is a festive night, isn't it, Sir Adrian?
Sir Ian said almost condescendingly while wrapping his arm around Sydney's shoulders and pulling her into him a bit. Adrian didn't know what was more insulting. Sir Ian's arm around Sydney or him calling him Sir Adrian.
You're right, Sir Ian. It's a party. Let's have fun until we forget what day it is.
The four of them collectively cheered and headed down the stairs.